So I'd like to give a warm welcome to Buti. She is going to give us the presentation on autism at home.
Thank you. So since this is a lot about adaptations, I had to make one today because I had nowhere to hang my mic. So it's hanging on my hair tie. All about adaptions, right? So I am Buti. I've been in the field of disabilities for, oh gosh, like 28 years. So I started when I was 2. Can't go with that joke anymore because I have readers. But anyways, so I was a teacher. I was an itinerant. I became the director of autism and intellectual disabilities for the entire Chicago public schools. Best job ever. But then I realized I really needed to see what happens after kids graduate, and left the district and became director of a day program, which was the best thing I ever did. So if anyone's in a school setting, make sure you go see what happens after school, because it really kind of changed some of my thoughts and how I would have maybe programmed for students. So it was a great experience, but I still miss school and children ages anyway. So then I started my own business, so I consult, present, and then still consult with the adult agency, Newman. So I do have my own business, but really quickly, just so I know like who you guys are, because like she said, I don't know anyone here. So are there any special ed teachers? Is anyone? Okay. General ed teachers, administrators, parents of people with disabilities. I'm just, thank you, one. I'm like, I'm missing the mark on everything. Paraprofessionals, thank you. DSPs, I don't know the terminology you might use in Wisconsin, but like direct care providers. Therapists, OT, speech, social work, yay. Okay, psychologists. Oh, there's not, we could totally talk about them. Day program providers, residential. So I'm missing the boat. Who are you guys? Okay. Yep. What about you? Awesome. So is everyone in adult care? No, not. Oh, okay. So we're all over the board. Okay. Well, hopefully we'll be able to hit something that might be relevant for everyone then. So some of the learning objectives, kind of identifying like 3 visuals that you might be able to use in the home to make it more accessible for someone with autism to become more independent, different kind of modifications to the actual home setting, some sensory modifications, and some forms of technology that can be added to the home. They always make you put this when you present. I have no fiscal or non-fiscal relationship to disclose. So here's kind of how it's going to go. I know we have a lunch break in the middle, so I will keep us on time. So I want to go over a case study first. So it is my participation in opening a group home for some adults with autism in Chicago. Hopefully we'll like finish that before lunch, but we'll make sure we stop at the same time. Then go over the ways to support children or adults who are living at home or living with parents or living on their own, and then kind of answering some questions. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Hope that works for everyone. I always want to start out with what is assistive technology, because when I talk about a lot of things that I use to support people with autism, it's not often plug-in technology. And I always hate the name assistive technology because people think like you got to plug it in. And that's not always the case, because as you can see by the definition, it's any item, piece of equipment, product, system, acquired commercially, off the shelf, modified or customized, that's used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. So keep that in mind when I'm sharing different things that we did in the home to support our adults with autism, that it was considered assistive technology, even though a lot of it wasn't plugged in. So real quick, so we have to kind of define autism before we jump in. So what is it really? So it's a developmental disability that affects our communication and social interaction. It involves the engagement of repetitive activities, stereotype movements, resistance to environmental change of routines, and possibly some unusual responses to sensory experiences. So the case study I want to talk about, I want to tell you who, what, where, when, and how this all came about. So Newman Family Services was, which is weird to say now was, because literally 1 month ago they got acquired by another agency called Envision. So if you're supporting in the adult care world, you know that financially people are really suffering. Agencies are having to merge together or close their doors. So Newman was open for over 70 years, and they just last month had to merge with another agency. So if you Google search them, you won't find them. They are now Envision. But at the time, Newman was the agency in which I was the day program director, but then I was asked to do this great project. What the CEO said, we have many members, adults with autism, that are living in different group homes and are really struggling. So he challenged me, and I love a challenge, and said, can you design a home specifically for some of our members with autism? What would it look like? How much would it cost? And who would it be best designed for? So that's kind of how it started. I took on the challenge, and what I did was I started a team, and I said, let's look at who we think possible candidates would be. And I wanted them to have a diagnosis of autism, communicative intent, sensory seekers, and required and desired a very calm environment. So we came up with a list, a pretty long list, because there was over 300 members in Newman, and 51 of them had autism. So out of that 51, we probably had, I'd say maybe 20 that fit this criteria. So we started out with our first group of 6, and because I'm a big believer of choice, and I didn't want to say, hey, we think you should live here, so you're going to live here. That is unfortunately how many of the agencies work. They just move the members around and to meet the needs of the agency. So I said, no, this has to be choice. So we brought the first list of candidates to the home and asked them if they wanted to move in. We had a home already identified that was vacant and empty and clear. So it was a little bit hard for them to maybe say, no, I don't want to live in this empty home. But we explained it. We brought a lot of visual supports to help with their communication needs. All of the members in the first group we brought were all nonverbal. So we brought them there. We explained to them that we wanted to create this home very special for them to meet their needs. And we explained about the sensory and the communication. And they all said yes. So we didn't have to even go to any of the other members. These 6 said, yes, I want to live here. And I had a communication sheet, and they had to circle yes or no, and then they even signed their name to make it like really official. You guys are adults. We want you to tell us if you want to live here. So that was super exciting. So then we went to the next step, like, okay, so we're going to get this house. It's going to take a few months to get it going. Everyone pick your room. Another thing that wasn't typically done at Newman. It was kind of like, here's your room. We're moving you here. So it was really empowering. The staff that came with to support, I think, was a little shocked that I was asking them, like, which room do you want? Pick your room. But it was super empowering for the members. They were running around like, oh, this is so great. And they were, I think, super meaningful choices, because like we have one guy, Dwayne, who's always in the bathroom. He picked the bedroom by the bathroom. I'm like, he did this. He knows what he's doing. So they all picked their room, and then I had some color, just actually looks just like this. I picked like 4 different colors to say, what color do you want to paint a wall in your room? So gave them all choices. They were such little followers. All the girls picked the same color. All the boys picked the same color. It's like, okay, well, makes it easy for purchasing, but kind of funny. Again, it was such a different experience for our staff. they were like, you're letting them pick their color and they're picking their room. So to me, that modeling alone was like very useful to show them that they may not have words, but they have choices and they are adults. So that was super exciting. So now we have to start planning, right? But so we identified the staff too. So I really wanted them to see how I provided choices. If they didn't have words, I gave them, like the 2 color swatches. Well, I gave them 4 color swatches actually. And even, okay, well, which wall do you want to be your accent wall? Put a piece of tape on it, and they had to tape it on the wall they actually wanted painted that color. Let's see. Yeah, it's unfortunately probably the first time some of these adults were actually given such powerful choices. And I know that often they respond to, their past experience. So I was explaining that to staff as we were doing it. You have to be very patient. We have to provide choices, give response time, and things like that. So now we have to start preparing the house. We didn't realize how quickly we'd find 6 people that wanted to live there. It was our first trip. So social stories is a evidence-based strategy used for people with autism that I found very useful in my experience. So I decided we're going to start with social stories, creating those. So here's a little bit about what a social story is. So it's evidence-based strategy, teaching specific behaviors, written in first person, present tense, includes like other people's perception. The philosophy is that you're either reading it or being read to this story over and over. So at some point, you're almost memorizing the script, if you will, and then hopefully generalize it in the correct opportunity or time. So the first stories we did were about, this is my old home, this is my new home, this is my old bedroom, I will have a new bedroom. I know moving is hard, I will ask for help if I need it, all kinds of things like that. So I made 2 copies because I know day program and residential sometimes doesn't work well together. So I made a copy for day program, a copy for residential, and a schedule that I said you have to read these stories to the individuals. They each had their own because it had their own photographs in it, their own bedrooms past, and then present, the ones they picked. And it talked about just how difficult moving is and what's going to happen in the move. And we had them read 3 times a day at minimum. And everyone was kind of, staff-wise, was like, what are we doing this for? So I always give my little story of the aha moment that I saw a social story work. Has anyone used social stories? All right, so yeah, so I used them in a school. I remember this kid, Eli, the student Eli. So he used to do this thing they called jabbering. He would just put his finger up and just jabber away, and the school thought that was a behavior they wanted to change. So in his social story, there was a repetitive line, and the repetitive line was, when you talk to somebody. So it was a whole story, but that was like a repetitive line. So I was in the school one day and I see like a whole classroom going this way and Eli going this way, probably coming back from the bathroom or therapy or something. And he's walking and I see the finger go up. So we all know, oh, he's going to start jabbering. Finger goes up and he goes, when you talk to somebody. And he points to the class, walks over, starts talking about a movie he watched and got in trouble for talking in the hallway. And I was like, no. But it was my aha moment, like, oh my gosh, so we've read this to him so many times, it finally generalized into a really appropriate, well, except for the fact that this school had the rule of no talking in the halls. But so I shared that with the staff to show them, like, it can work if we're doing it right and we're really reading it often and doing it maybe right before the visits and stuff like that. So like I said, it included pictures, new home, old home, dates of visits, different experiences that happened during a move. I just moved 3 days ago, so I would have changed this story. Like, label your boxes. That's what I would put in it. So then we also created schedules and calendars. So schedules and calendars are important for people with autism. It helps them with structure and routine. It's visual. Auditory information is fleeting. It's not there long enough sometimes for someone with autism maybe to process it or go back and pick up some details. So, so what we did was we had a calendar at the day program and at residential for each individual. There were 6. I don't know if I said that. 6. Happened to be 3 girls, 3 boys, guys, 3 women, 3 men. And in the calendar, we used a little visual and we used words of what was going to take place. So visiting, packing, dinner. We had dinner before we actually moved there. Days where some of the furniture was delivered and I had them help unpack things and move it in. So everything was on this calendar, and each one had their own calendar, and they'd cross off the days as they went so they can really be engaged in what was going to take place. So then we started some actual modifications to the home. So that included sensory room, dimmers, and I'll go into more details about these things. Tearaway drapes. We took off all hanging light fixtures, carpeted the wall in the sensory room, did some bathroom modifications, and again, I'll go through these. Alarm system to the doors to prevent eloping. We did have some members. Now in Illinois, I don't know if you do here, that would be considered a rights restriction, so we all had to ask them if they would sign it, if they were okay with having that on the doors. Tape on the floors for pacing. We had 2 pacers, and some of the other members were annoyed with that. So we taped off an area of just like, here's where, if you'd like to do some pacing, here's where it is. So tape to me is like magic. I often tell teachers and parents and group home, residential and everything, that tape is a visual boundary. So for people with autism, it often really helps them to segment an area and determine what it is that might be taking place there. I mean, we've even used it on a dining room table for someone who maybe likes to eat someone else's food. We taped off their area, like, here's your area. Oh, okay. Yeah, and I used them in the schools often. So what I was finding that I was having to do to the staff was give them kind of like those aha stories to show them how they work. Because when I was wanting to tape off stuff, they were like, what is she doing? So I would give like the story of Garrison in gym class. I come in to visit him. He has autism. He's running around the gym, and all the other kids are in these lines doing exercises. And I say to the gym teacher, why isn't Garrison in line? And he does one of those, we're just happy he's here. And I'm like, no, he can participate. So I said, which line is his? And he tells me, and I put a box with tape on the ground. And I'm like, hey, Garrison, come here. This is your area. Right here in this box, this is where you stand for exercises. So he was like, okay. He's so literal that when they were doing jumping jacks, he had to do them really small because I didn't make like the box big enough. So I was like, oh, great. So we made it bigger. But then it was so great. 1 month later, I'm in the same school. The PE teacher, the gym teacher, actually has a roll of tape on his arm. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, oh, we tape everything. He's like, everything. Run to a base, where we want him to shoot a basket from, everything. So I was telling the staff like these stories, they can really be valuable, the tape on the floor. And then we started creating all these visuals throughout the house. So we'll talk and show some of those. So the visuals were labeling things for independence, steps for completing tasks, job charts, schedules, the lighting. So we know that some people with autism are affected by different kind of lighting. So fluorescent lights could be, too bright. There's also fluorescent lights have what they call as a flicker rate, which some people hear and some people don't. But sometimes they say people with autism who might have sensitive ears hear the flicker rate. So we tried to have as much natural light as possible, lamp light. And then we did dimmers for those who might need less light in a certain room or their own room. So we had dimmers everywhere, no fluorescent lights, lamp lights, and the natural light. And we didn't have any hanging fixtures either. We wanted everything to be pretty clean lined, not just because I like that look, but we found when I observed these particular members in their homes, the things that bothered them, the biggest thing that I saw about it was the mini blinds, because they're not perfect, right? And they're bent. And I literally saw a guy for 20 minutes try to straighten them, and he kept going like this. Like, it was killing him. Like, why are these lines not straight? And then he ended up tearing it off the wall. And I'm like, okay, note to self, no mini blinds. This is like the alarm system that kind of gives you a bell sound when someone opens the door. I'm not sure how effective it is, because when I was there, I kept hearing it when I was on a visit way after they moved in, and it was like driving me crazy. And the staff, I believe, didn't really hear it anymore because they live with it, or not live with it, but they're around it all the time. So I'm not sure I'm sold on that one yet. So we did do some actual modifications, like as if maybe they would have a physical disability. They don't, but what I wanted to do was to increase their independence. When I observed them in the homes they were at, I noticed a lot of them, for instance, felt like they needed maybe more support than they did, for like even in the shower. Like, I watched someone in the shower with her hand out of the shower holding a staff because she was afraid she was going to fall. I was like, oh, that's a bummer. She's an adult having to hold someone's hand while she's showering. So we put bars in. We put a seat in. We put even the bars by the toilet. I just wanted them to feel very safe and more independent. I wanted them to not need or desire the need or think they need so much support. So we did a lot of those kinds of modifications. Oh yeah, my tape. I said my story too early. But this is not the picture of the house, but this is kind of the example of what I was talking about for the pacing area. It really bothered one guy. So once we put in the lines for pacing, the other guy knew, like, it was funny to watch him walk around it. Like, I am not going by the pacing area. Like, okay, you don't have to. And then you can do color coding with the different tape too. So I took red tape in the kitchen and put like red on the handle of the stove to indicate it could be hot. We did put red in like the cabinet that has like medicine for like maybe danger or products like that, even though they might have been locked, just to indicate various different things. So I guess I didn't, let me go back real quick to some of these. So I did explain about the blinds. The blinds had to go. We actually had a lovely young lady donate sewing these tearaway drapes. So what she did was, we did industrial Velcro at the top of every window, and all she did was sewed industrial Velcro on the fabric, and then a nice little hem at the bottom. This way it was very clean. There was nothing uneven. They weren't going to obsess with straightening the blinds. We still could tie them open, so we had something to tie it open, or we ourselves could take them down if it's a beautiful sunny day. But when I looked at all the homes and saw how rickety all the window coverings were, the staff said there's a lot of behavior around that. So I thought, well, let's make it so there won't be a lot of behavior around it. Want to take them down, take them down. Put them up, put them up. But that something about that just clean, simple line helped a lot. So the sensory room will show in a minute. Okay, so I guess that's the only one. Well, there is some DIY things you can find on how to put fabric over mini blinds if you're like really want to keep mini blinds. But okay, so let's go back to first visit. So they were there. When I say visit, this means after they decided they wanted to go. So now they got to see, are getting to see their house as it's emerging. right? They're coming in and now the bars are on the bathroom, or the seat is in the shower. We were there the day their sensory items got delivered. So I was like, all right, these are yours. Unpack the boxes. Let's go. And they started unpacking it like it was Christmas. It was amazing. Just going, unpacking everything, bringing it, putting it on shelves. Even just hanging out in the living room. These are people they're not currently living with. They know who they are because they go to day program together, but none of them currently live together. So that was kind of cool to just have that opportunity to engage. Well, then we found out that there were two that had a crush on each other. So we're like, where's your bedroom? Wait, where's your bed? Okay, we're good. Different floors. It was a 2-bedroom. So again, everything worked out so perfect. It was so funny. All the guys picked the 3rd floor and all the girls picked the 2nd floor. I was like, huh. Perfect. But it was just a wonderful experience to watch them engage and to watch them like get excited about this house that they have part of, like designing and decorating. So almost all of them, when they walked in, went right to their room. And I still remember Elton, the beds weren't in yet, and he kept pointing to the floor and going like this. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna get you a bed. But he was very, very concerned about the bed. I'm like, I promise you, we're gonna get you a bed. So again, we're using that calendar, right? So we're crossing it off as we're going. They're completely involved. We're still reading the social story. Now their items from their bedroom are being delivered. So they're actually creating their bedroom the way they want it. Which wall do you want your bed on? Meeting their housemates. It was so great to see this happen. So we had a dinner at the house. Now I have to admit, this was the first sign of some major anxiety for probably 2 of them. So we did make sure we had like a really awesome dinner to kind of be the motivator. But 2 of them were like, no, I don't eat dinner here. I eat dinner, at the Fletcher house. I don't eat dinner at this house. So it was very difficult. We brought out the calendar. We brought out the social story. 2 of them definitely had a hard time. The other ones were just like so excited. This was a huge opportunity for training. The staff started serving the adults, and I was like, what are you doing? And they're like, we're giving them their food. No, this is their house. This is their food. They're adults. Well, what if they eat too much? What happens when you eat too much? Like, it's okay. Sometimes you eat too much. So they really had a hard time pulling back. I know some of the staff had been there for over 2 decades, and 2 decades ago, it was all about caregiving, and now it's more about support and teach. So that was really challenging to say, like, I know you want to be a caregiver, but actually your role has changed, and it's about supporting and teaching. So had some resistance. The 2 that had some challenge at the dinner, we brought them into the sensory room, allowed them to experience that. One went for a walk outside. One ended up taking her dinner back home. It wasn't the house she lived in, and she just couldn't connect that. So it was a little bit of a bummer, but for the most part, I took this as an opportunity for me to model how to allow them to be independent. I remember one was scooping the fruit salad and spilled, and a staff literally yells and goes, oh my gosh. And I'm like, it's fruit, and I move back, and he goes, it's spilling. And I'm like, I know, it's horrible. I was like, it's just fruit. And guess what? You're going to be like, Dinah, you going to pick that up? She's like, yep. She got this. But it was amazing how, and I know that all the staff, it came from a good place. It's because they care for them and they want to be the caregiver. But it was definitely challenging for them. So the big move. Nothing ever goes right on moves. As I say, I just moved. Nothing ever goes right. But I felt like we were prepared with the visuals, the social stories, and the photos and everything. So we get there. Everyone's in their room. They're hilarious. They're all going in each other's room, kind of making sure, like, do you have something nicer than I have? Elton decided to take a lamp from someone's room, and I'm like, ask him if you could trade, you know. So it ended up, we didn't go to day program that day. I was like, look, this is a special day. We're going to stay here all day. It was great. I think all the supports and the visual strategies really helped. What was clear is the ongoing training required for our staff.